You're listening to the Australian Hunting and Beyond podcast with Matt, where we talk about hunting, shooting, fishing, camping, and everything else that the great outdoors has to offer. Let's get into it. All right, love this time of year. A lot of hunting going on, and it's awesome seeing all the great animals being taken, and that just makes me start to think, what are people going to do with their trophies? And I am a big fan of like Euro mounts. It's probably the way I will go. And I thought, well, I've been following these guys for a while. And so I've got Brad from Aussie Skull Mounts and what was the other part, Brad?
Designs,
that's it.
Yep.
It's a fairly new name. You've changed it over, so we'll talk about that in a second. But you've got some exciting new products coming up, as well as your existing stuff, which I absolutely love, and we'll talk about that as we go. But, mate, thanks for coming on the podcast. How are you going?
Yeah, no, awesome, mate. Thanks for having us on. We appreciate it. And, yeah, we're going well. We've been busy, sort of flat out. So between our day jobs and also the sort of the side hustle, the small business keeps us busy.
Let's talk about what was it previously called and how did it start out? Because I was a massive fan of that. That stuff looks amazing.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so we were Aussie. We were Fish Travel, Feast Explore, which when that kicked off, we'd sort of planned to do some online stuff and just see where it took us, see if we could get some followers on Instagram and Facebook and that sort of thing. And then we sort of did that for a little bit, and then Carly sort of said, well, you've been talking about some metal art, and I couldn't find a sambar. I wanted a sambar for the wall, for the shed. And, yeah, just had to muck around with a few designs, and being a fitter and turner by trade, sort of could have a tinker around. And yeah, so I came up with a sambar head that looked pretty all right, and then we end up throwing it on. Carly loved it, and so she's put on Marketplace, and we'd sold about 30 or 40 in a matter of weeks, and then so we said, right, hey, this could go somewhere. So, and it's just sort of grown from that day.
I love it. I'll be honest. I want to know how you make it, because I sort of look at it and go, is it sort of from a laser cutter? Is it, how do you do it? Because there's so much detail in some of them and they look bloody amazing. It's something I can definitely see hanging on the wall, or even some lights behind it. Like, it just, the detail, the backgrounds, it's fantastic. If you haven't seen it, you need to get on Instagram and have a look through the photos, because they are really quality, good stuff.
Yeah, so it sort of just starts off. I have a picture. I sort of have a picture of what I want in my mind. Like, say, for example, a dog on point, one with the sambar and the hunter and the gun slung over his shoulder. And just have that sort of that image. And then I find some images I can work with and import them and change them a bit. And then I put them on CAD and a drawing program and sort of shuffle them around a bit and mess around with the size you want and that sort of thing. And then, yeah, I at the moment, at this point, we send them off and have them. It started off in the early days getting a plasma cut, and now they get laser cut now. All our stuff's laser cut. And we had to get it cut out of, a lot of it's out of mold steel. And the other stuff is obviously the steel that rusts up, and you know, you can still paint that, or we just let it naturally rust up, the cordon steel.
Because it looks good when it rusts up. I like that colour and sort of texture, so I can see that being quite a popular design.
Yeah, there's a lot. Yeah, it's each to their own, but some people want the rust and some people want the black, and yeah, you sort of get, it's probably 50-50 what people want, but yeah, the designs have become very popular. I think we've got 10 in that range, roughly 10 in that range now, and very popular. And you know, we've had great feedback, and some of the images they send back with lights behind them, and they're in their new houses, and their outdoor areas above their pride and joy next to a deer head. And yeah, it sort of gives you a good vibe when you see your work being put in someone's new house, you know.
Oh, look, it looks awesome. I've got this massive print of just like a photo that my wife wanted something really big in our lounge room after we painted, just to sort of match. And it's just two red stags in the fog. It looks bloody awesome. But looking at something like you have, that's sort of so I can see getting something like that down the track, because it has that sort of country feel, but it's got like a little story in it. They look great. So I'm a big fan. And then you've gone a step. Well, actually, before we jump onto that, I want to know, obviously you must have some sort of hunting background with the designs and things like that, because the way you do them all, it does look really good, but it comes across that you must have some sort of knowledge of hunting.
Yeah, so it goes back. I suppose I'm 48 now. So I started off parents' farm out near we're Benalla, so we're northeast Victoria. And parents had a farm. We had 700 acres. And yeah, so grew up with an air rifle in my hand, and that sort of evolved to a 22. And then, we shot, there was lots of rabbits around back then. And then up to the sort of the bit bigger calibers, fox shooting. And, we did have a couple of thousand sheep. So we're always out chasing foxes, and it all just sort of evolved and sort of all just rolled on from there. I got involved in the field and game, and then I was doing kangaroo culls, and I was shooting for a private guy doing a lot of hare culls on the vineyards. So it just rolled one thing into the next, and then woodwork teacher at the tech school was probably one of the best old time sambar hunters around, and we used to always pick his brain, and he wouldn't take you out as such back in the day, but pick his brain because there wasn't the information about samba around. Like you didn't have you couldn't just jump on YouTube and learn what it's so easy now to learn, but a bit harder back then. No one sort of told you too much at all. So then he was a very successful deer hunter, and so a couple of guys at school, we got into it from that point. So from probably year 10 on, I suppose, about that age. So started off, and yeah, it's pretty hard yards. Didn't shoot too many animals for the first few years, probably, but then as it all evolved, and you got better and better, and the deer numbers, of course, really built too. Yeah, and then started sort of all stalking. I did all stalking, and I did have a Labrador for a while, and then I sort of just have a Jack Russell. I always have a Jack Russell beside me now, and just stalk with a Jackie. Yeah.
Yeah, nice. That's obviously, you can see that in the designs that you have that background and knowledge. So it makes a lot of sense, obviously, with your history there. Is that the main focus now, Samba, or do you hunt a bit of other quarry as well?
Yeah, so we got a fair few fallow around here as well. So it's sort of generally been fallow and samba, and then I got sucked into the archery there for a few years. So I managed to shoot quite a representable samba stag with a bow,
Nice.
and also probably shot a dozen fallow with the bow. So yeah, learnt to, obviously, just through learning to rattle them in and call them in and that sort of thing. But hopefully, fingers crossed, made the decision to try and shoot the Grand Slam Australian deer. So that's the plan in the next 10 years. So
Nice.
might be venturing a bit further afield. So that's the plan with the hunting side of it anyway.
Yeah, no, that's exciting. I just had a mate, shout out to Felix. He just knocked his Grand Slam off. So
Yeah,
well
awesome.
done. It's pretty cool, and I like what he's done with his. He sort of mounted each sort of skull on top of each other. It's coming along, looks really, really good. But
Oh yeah, cool.
so, all right, I think that's a great segue into the new venture, is the skull mounts, and it's pretty exciting because I think there's some good stuff overseas with brackets and things like that. But I think there's a bit of a gap here for an Aussie company to get involved and do a bit. So you've started making some of them.
Yeah, so we did a couple of shows. We did Mansfield, we did a couple of Mansfield markets just to get a feel for having a market stall before we went to Warragul, because when we went to the hunting expo at Warragul, it was huge. I'm glad we'd done the pre-markets, because our metal art was just crazy there. And we spoke to a few people there said to us, asked us, do we do skull mounts? We spoke to a guide there, and he said, do you do skull mounts? You should look at doing skull mounts. So that was 18 months ago or whatever it was. So we thought it was hectic getting these designs ready and doing different fresh designs for people. With the metal art side of it. And then we thought, all right, let's have a look at, they've got time to have a look at these skull mounts. So being a fitter and turner, I could tinker with them a fair bit. And I've got them to a point now where they sit very well on the mount. I'm very happy with where our mounts are at. We're only getting the first batch cut this week, hopefully in the next couple of days, but really happy how they sit, how a head sits on them. If it's left whole and not not cut, not too much of the back of the skull cut off into the brain box there. So that part of it's really happy. So for this first mount will be sort of sambar, cheetal, that sort of size deer. And then once you get the larger reds, elk and that sort of thing, we'll look at a big amount at the moment. That's been the designs there. We've got either sort of a trial one cut, and we've also got a small amount designed at the moment and getting the trial ones cut. So we've got a guy wants a cougar. He's got a cougar skull. He wants that on it, and a bear skull. So that'll be a good test out for the small amounts. Yeah, so that's, yeah.
So how does it sort of work? How's your one working for people that haven't seen it?
Yeah, yep. So I've got it just will screw to a wall, and then it's got two little lugs that the bracket part will just slot into. So it just slots in. So it will swivel. Put a bit of thought into the design as far as, if you do mount it a little bit crooked or one antler's a bit heavier than the other, it tends to want to swing. So I've made it with little notches so it will sit straight or it will sit on either angle. So you can move your head a little bit. The pin goes, the end of it, the pin will go into the brain cavity, and then you've got a little piece off that with it's like I suppose a half moon, quarter moon shaped part that sits and supports underneath the skull. So you can't actually see it, but it really supports it well. So very happy with how they've come up this first lot.
Yeah, cool. And so they're going to be available. So this podcast will go out in a couple of weeks' time. So they'll be available roughly around the same time as this launches, I'm guessing.
Yeah, so I've got 50 cut out of this trial lot that will be for sale, but I'd say they'll be snapped up pretty quick, and then we'll go from there. We'll just get a feel of where the market's at. Yeah, hopefully we'll launch them within the next 3 weeks to 4 weeks. So pretty exciting times.
Yeah, bloody oath. What are they retailing for? What are you going to be selling them at?
I still haven't got the prices sorted, but I was very hopeful to be around that $100 mark.
Yeah, okay.
That's where roughly, between $100, $150 is where I think it'll sit at this stage. But yeah, I just haven't got all the figures yet from getting them cut. So
yeah,
we just wanted to make a quality product, Australian made product, locally made, and have them at an affordable price that old mate can just grab one, wants one for his shed, whatever, and it's affordable.
And there's no need to have like the wood or anything like that, isn't it? So it's like a sort of almost a freestanding skull coming off the wall.
Yeah, off the wall. Yeah, so there's no need for anything. Just this. So you'll have the bracket that screws the wall, and then that's the arm, and then you'll have a little mounting piece which bolts on, and it's actually on you can tip it forward or back anyway, just to suit your skull. But I have tested a few. I've got a local guy that's shot heaps of different species, so heading out there this weekend to try a lot of different heads on the mounts. So that's really, really helpful as well, because I just haven't got some of the heads laying around that some of these guys have got.
Yeah. So look, I like the idea of that, and especially from cost, by the time you buy the shields and that, like the last time I priced up a shield from a trophy mob, because I deal with them through my work, I think they were about nearly $40 odd just for the timber frame, sort of, the timber backing. So you're not that far off if you do get to be selling them for $100. And I like the idea of it just being freestanding off the wall. So it's like almost suspended in midair. I like that. It sounds so cool.
Yeah, and it looks awesome because the head's on the angle that you would have seen the stag, at that natural angle. And I just think it does them justice. And, I've been one to skull cap a lot and think I'll get it mounted, and you don't, and you end up just putting a screw through it on your wall, and they just doesn't do them justice on the wall. Like I've still got probably 10 sambar just screwed on the wall like that, and half a dozen fallow. But yeah, very impressed with how they look. They look very, I think Euromounts are going to become a big thing in Australia, and I think they look great.
I'm a big fan of the Euromounts. I've said it all the time, I'm not someone who would get it, go through taxidermy and have the whole thing. That's just not my style. If I'm lucky enough to get whatever, I'm probably looking at the Euromount side of it, because I do like that look of that skull and a nice white skull and the antlers. I think that looks pretty cool. And then thinking about how what you're describing with it sort of off the wall, but sitting in a more natural position. So one of the things I sort of have looked at with the Euro mounts where it's very flat skull, obviously that's how you have to mount it. If you're just putting a hook or like through a nail or whatever, attaching it to that wooden board. So it is not a natural sort of look too. So that sounds pretty awesome because you get the antlers being like they probably would be more naturally.
Yeah, and you can lay them back with the mounts. I've made them so you can lay them back, probably a little bit too far, but sort of a balance between how far do you have them off the wall. You don't want them to look ridiculous, but you want to be able to lay them back on that angle. So it's a lot of thoughts gone into the design, and I've had a lot of headaches with it, but finally to a point where, yeah, really happy with this one and working hard on the one for the open skull, more open skull into the brain cavity. So I'll have one hopefully. Been messing around with a couple of trial ones, so I just want to get that. So when guys message or whoever messages and says, "Oh, I've got this," it's got the open brain cavity, but I'll still have a mount to suit that. That's the plan in the next few months.
Yep. So have just multiple options for people.
Yeah, as well as the pedestal. I'd like to do a more of a pedestal one that just sits. You can sit down on your dresser or your shed on the bar or wherever, and the balance is sort of angles right too. So. Yeah, so there's a lot of ways we could go with it and heaps of different designs we could come up with.
Yeah, just sort of sky's the limit, and it's time and getting it done and then playing around with the designs, and it's not your full-time gig, as you said, so that makes it even more trickier.
And you don't want to, ideally there was going to be one mount. That was the plan. Let's make one mount. That's easy. And now it's turned into already got 3 mounts. We're looking at a pedestal. We're looking at, then a bloke dropped in a buffalo head on the weekend and said, he got this buffalo head and said, "Oh, any chance you could mount that?" And I said, "Oh, well, I'm a long way off that." And anyway, I said, "I'll leave it with you." The missus wanted to get off the couch anyway, off the table. So I've landed with a buffalo skull I've got to try and do something with now. So that's another avenue.
It's a good thing to be busy. That's always something I say. And it sounds like you will be extremely busy because I can see it taking off. And I was pretty excited when you announced that you were going to go down that pathway, and your little sneak peek video on Instagram there was really cool because I was like, this looks bloody good. And we'd been talking for quite a while, and it's just sort of worked out perfect timing, I think, with the Rut and Raw coming sort of to an end. And, I think it's really good timing to be bringing this product out. Is the first 50, because I think they'll sell pretty quick, is the plans to go straight away and start putting more in? Are you going to advertise? How are you going to advertise them? Is it just going to be purely through Instagram? Are you going to run it on the website? How are you sort of getting it out there?
Yeah, well, we've been in talks with Wild Deer magazine. So we've got some sponsorship going with them as far as with some of our metal art skull mounts, potentially skull mounts down the track just for some of the comps and stuff. So they've been kind enough to work with us, and so we'll have an ad running in the Wild Deer magazine, the next few editions. So it'll be in there, which is so awesome to have that sort of support. So that's been great, and and had a few other people that are happy to sort of share them through their socials. So I'm just going to get a few out there at the start and get a few. I know a lot of people through our other metal art side of it. So, and then just through the socials, I think with Insta and Facebook and hopefully, the fingers crossed, we might look at wholesaling these. That's the sort of broader plan. We haven't discussed it a lot, but we have looked at this product. It's a bit harder with the metal art, but with these skull mounts, it's something we'd like to potentially say, okay, let's look at wholesaling to some of the bigger places.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think that would be a good sort of avenue, and it's always good for people to get their hands on things sometimes to actually have a bit of a look of it. Some people struggle to, I guess, have that mental image, even though you've described it and I've got a pretty clear image of what it is. There might be someone out there that needs to physically see it and hold it. So that sounds pretty good if you can get them into a lot of the bigger gun shops and things like that. I think that'll be that'll take right off. I can see this going really big really quickly, and I think you'll be flat out.
I hope so. I hope you're right, Matt. I hope you're right. So, but yeah, we have had a lot of feedback already. We've had a lot of interest. Let's say so much interest in these mounts. So yeah, we're really excited about it. And like I said, there's so many. This is sort of a rabbit hole from where we started, but this just makes sense. And when I've seen that there's just no one's really doing them here in and then of course to import them from overseas is just starting to get sort of too expensive for a lot of people. So that's the hope. It goes big.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's a good little niche market there too, because when you look at taxidermy, so much of it is booked out for so long in advance. Like they're all flat out, which is fabulous. I think it's fantastic and keeping people busy in work. I love it. But it's also, I think, for someone else that maybe wants to get things a bit quicker and they're not too fussed whether it's the taxidermy or just a Euro mount. It's just another option for people to have. And I'm all about options. I'm all about, catering for the masses and having people do what they want to do. So it sounds like a really good step that it's local. Hopefully, this, I think you'll be under the pump somehow. So hopefully the supply will meet the demand. Because I can foresee that happening because there's, I don't know if you've been following the socials, but man, there's been a lot of animals taken this year. It's been great.
Yeah,
I think it's been a weird rut and raw from all accounts, but there has been some great animals and a lot of them taken, which has been great to see. And a lot of people getting their first, but getting some decent sized trophies with their first as well. It's a good little sort of side project for you to have that I can see a lot of people going, hey, yeah, it's just another option for them to choose or even just to think about.
Yeah, and a lot of guys, like I've done it. You've shot a stag, and you think, oh, it's not huge, it's not a monster, but to you it still means a lot. And the hunt, you remember the hunt, you remember the animal, and you never forget that. And to you it means a lot. And I think it just doesn't justice to have them as a Euro. And I wished I had boiled out a lot more of my skulls now and boiled them out and had them on as Euros. I sort of kick myself a bit now because I'd have a pretty awesome collection now. But yeah, but that may be something down the track we can look at, is actually doing the skulls. Yeah, there's a bit of talk of down the track doing something maybe with manufacturing skulls and fitting skull caps to the skulls. So yeah, there's a bit of chat around about that at the moment.
I'm relatively sentimental, and for me it's all about the memory. So one of the things I do is I keep my shells. So I've just got the habit that eventually when I knock over a trophy, a good set of antlers, I want to keep that, but I already keep the shells, and I'd love to have it sort of hanging, have the mount, something similar to your bracket, and then be able to put like a little chain and have the shell as well. I just think that would be sort of super cool with it. And then even to the extent of just the photo, having the photo underneath the shell and then the actual mount would be just, I think that's how I'm personally thinking I want to go with everything. Because I think that's a story,
isn't it?
It is. It's got the picture, it's got the skull, but then it's got the shell. Like, I don't know. It seems like all of it's there.
Just makes sense.
It makes sense. And just in one sort of, part of the wall. And that's how I've sort of envisaged it. So when I saw that little sneak peek and saw that there was that sort of chamber or rod that comes out, I was like, oh, yes, I can hang a bullet, my shell from that.
Yeah.
That's almost perfect. Because I was wondering, sitting there going, all right, how could I do that? Well, could it just be on the antler? Because then it won't be symmetrical because it'll be on one antler as opposed to the other.
Yeah.
I don't really want to do that. So, no, it sounds really, really good. Well, for me anyway, personally, my mind's already going that stage going, oh, yeah, it could look like that. And that'll be cool, especially if you did it, say, like, I'm now thinking like fishing line or something. So the case is almost suspended with nothing there. So it sort of matches that thing. Sorry, I'm just going off on a tangent. And I do that when the brain starts firing going, oh, that could work. So.
That's where my brackets go. I start thinking about them, and then I've got the big pedestal one in the corner with the 2 or 3 trophies on the one pedestal mount, so that's a whole different avenue. But as far as some people may not have room, I realise people stack them in the corner because they haven't got the room. But that's another one we've chatted about, is doing just the post with different mounts on that, so you can maybe hang 3 or 4 different Euros on that one, off that one post.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so that's
I tell you what would look good would be having one of your metal art sort of, backgrounds with it probably below, the bracket below of it, And, if you got the Samba, have a Samba background or a fallow and a fallow one, because they look awesome. I could see that going really well together.
Yeah, yeah. I've actually got some. I've got a Euro just on one of our mounts at the moment. We've just been getting some photos of, and I've got all the metal art sort of sitting around it, and it does look the part. In a men's shed or in a hunter's shed. That yeah, just the look of the metal art, and that's why guys are grabbing it. They're putting the metal art in their sheds, and
Yeah.
hopefully these Euro mounts just sort of just top it off, and just give it that, just finish it off.
Yeah, yeah. No, that sounds bloody good, actually. Mate, what sizes, when you talk about the metal art, do you range in sizes? Like how flexible are you with those sort of designs so people have an idea of the different sizes you can get and whatnot?
Yeah, so in the proportions you see on the website, we can smack them out any size in the length and width, as long as it's. So yeah, a lot of them are around that sort of 1100 by 500 sort of. That's similar size to a lot of our designs are with the bigger stuff. But we have had, people want them bigger, want them smaller, whatever. Change them. They didn't want a dog. They didn't want a like English pointer. They wanted the tail up or the tail down. So that's how. So everyone's different, and every hunter's a bit different. And there was guy with the dog on point. I've got the hunter with a gun on his shoulder, and people go, "Oh, look at that! He's not even ready to shoot it." And I said, "You'd be surprised, mate, how many blokes have seen the big stag and the gun still on their shoulder, and they're have that shocked look on their face, So you get a few laughs about that, but yeah, that's sort of why I did it.
So you can be flexible with the designs.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's a bit of flexibility in them, but it takes time. It does take time. It's just not that easy sometimes. Someone wants to move that or do that. It's still time and it's still effort, and which is fine. But it just chucks the cost up a bit. That's all. But we tried to be pretty flexible, and we did a couple with different dogs in them now. So I've got the designs done. So it's just easier.
Yep.
If someone wants that dog, we've got that covered. So, and just doing a bow hunting one at the moment with a red deer stag in it. I thought it was just sort of, I got asked so much about doing a bow hunting one. So that design is just about to get cut, I think, in the next fortnight. So that'll be on the site as well.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
How long does it take when you, like, from start to finish, like when you design it or have it in your head, do you actually drawing it all up? And I'm guessing you do that through the CAD program. How long does that roughly take you?
Yeah, look, I like them to be right. So it takes, some have taken months. This bow hunting one, I started it last year, and I just sort of got busy doing other stuff, and a guy really wanted one, so I've jumped back on it. But a lot of them would take 6 weeks, but before I get the image in my mind, and then by the time I sort of look around, find some images that suit, and sort of doctor them up, and then onto CAD, and then off to me drafty just to make sure they're right, and then off to the laser cutters would be, yeah, it's not as straightforward as you sort of think. There's a bit of time involved in it.
Yeah, no, look, I used to work with a couple of companies that used CAD, and the sort of, I think, engineers would be running that all the time, and it was such a technical program doing a lot of things, and it was something so simple in some of the designs, just took them so long to do because it was just so intricate. So that's what made me curious, because I'm like, yeah, okay, just changing a tail from down to up, that could be, how long would that take, sort of thing. It's not going to be like a 30-second job, I'd imagine.
Yeah, it's some of that stuff. It's not too bad, but if the rest of the design stays the same, but by the time the trouble I had was with the CAD program, you'd have the drawing right, and then you'd send it off to the laser cutter, and the drawing had, if you zoomed in, like blew it right up. The lines weren't joined or attached, so the laser cutter couldn't cut it. So then so I got a sort of a middleman now that goes over them for me to make sure all that's sweet. So, and it depends what you want to spend on your programs too, like sort of the sky's the limit with all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I just got a guy that's been very helpful. He's got his own business, custom metal business. So, yeah, he's been pretty good middleman to help us out finalising the drawings and then getting them laser cut. So, yeah, that sort of worked out. We found a bit of a balance there that's worked for both of us, and it's been really good.
Yep. Is there ideas of turning them into sort of bigger things? Because I've seen, like, farm gates and things like that, because that would be awesome, because they are such a good looking thing. Having that as the entrance to your property would be bloody cool.
Yeah, I've seen some awesome gates with a couple of sambar in them either gate, sambar and then a dog on point on the other side and a hunter, and yeah, it looked awesome. But we'll try and not get too involved in that sort of that custom side of it now. We got a guy we sort of palm a lot of that off to. If it's deer related stuff and it's close to an image I've got, yes, stoked to do it. But we don't really the custom stuff sort of is not our thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't try it like we try and steer away from the bigger custom stuff if we can, just because of the time, and we haven't really got the gear to handle it. So as far as the programs and other people are just so much faster, and it just
Yeah.
you run into hours and hours, and you just can't charge your time. You know what I mean? You try and keep your price reasonable, and it just runs into hours.
Yeah, it's one of those tricky ones, isn't it? I talk about this all the time. I like to try and support Australian when I can, but because of the way our society works, and which I get it, but the fair wages and all that sort of thing that come into it, you can get outpriced very, very quickly when you're looking at overseas stuff that they don't have to pay their workers the same amount, and they don't have to have the insurances, and they don't have to have, the vast array of things that really do put the prices up here. So it's that trying to find that fine balance. And I talk to a lot of guys about that that they have these great products, but it's hard to obviously compete with some of these other ones. And yeah, they're probably not the same quality and things like that, but it does make it difficult. It's one of those tricky things. It's yeah, I don't know. I don't know how it gets fixed. Like, I'd love for us to just, sort of keep everything in house here in Australia where we can. There's some things obviously you can't, but if you can buy Australian, do it. Like, that's a win, because you're keeping money in the country, supporting locals. It just makes more sense.
Yeah, for sure. We've been looking at we just discussed looking at getting the Australian made stamp in our or laser cut into our product, but we're just at the start of that now. I'm not sure where that journey will take us, but our whole plan was to just get it locally cut, use local people, and then finish them off ourselves. We do all the design work and we package them and get them out. But obviously, price will be interesting where it all sits, and I can see how it's so easy for people to want to go overseas, and I could probably get them manufactured overseas for a third of the price. I'm not sure. I haven't done
Yeah.
the math on that, but our whole thing with our business was to keep it local
Yep.
and have it. We called it Aussie skull mounts, and that's what they will be. So and that's what we sort of pride ourselves on, and we'll just see where all that sits in maybe 6 or 8 months' time, and see where it goes.
Yeah, I like it. What do they weigh? Like the artwork, I can't envisage it being sort of lightweight.
Yeah, well, they're 1.62 mil steel, so I think some of them are around the 3 kilos sort of thing.
Okay, so they're
So
not that
yeah,
bad. I thought they'd be a bit heavier than that. So
not too bad. You leave a lot of steel behind. Once you see the sheet cut, you think, "Wow, it looks cool." But
yeah, okay. Oh, I can see that, because there is that all those all the cutouts and the holes to make the picture. So yeah, okay, that makes
So
sense.
they're not too bad. The big Samba and stuff. There's a little bit of weight in the bigger Samba, and they've been really popular too this year. We sold so many big Samba.
Yeah, yeah. How do they attach to the wall?
So we've done a welcome one for like front entrance and stuff, whatever. But the welcome sign with the Samba and the doe, the stag and the doe, and they just attach. They've got holes actually laser cut in them to put screws through, but the rest are just basically put your screws just in and sit them on sit the frame on top of the screws. So
Yeah, okay.
yeah, we haven't, because studs are in different places, and
Yep.
it's hard to work that out and make it look pretty. And some people don't want the holes, so we just sort of left them. And if they want to butcher a hole in it, whoever they can, but
Yeah.
we just put a screw there and sit them on it.
Yep.
But
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, so that's where they're at the moment.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, it's exciting stuff. So I can't envisage you having much time to be out hunting, doing all this, and having a full-time job and running this on the side.
Yeah, so been hunting a fair bit. So I try to get out. I try to get out every weekend during the week, sort of now with the kids. As the girls are 8 and 10 now, so we're busy enough with a bit of sport and stuff. So yeah, but I try and get out
Yeah.
every Saturday or every Sunday morning is what I try and do. So and I'm getting close to the girls coming out. The girls want to start coming for a hunt with Dad, so that's
That's
exciting.
exciting. Yeah.
We just had them. I just yeah, we just cut up a 3/4 grown sambar we shot a couple of weeks ago, and they were on the mincer, and we got the new schnitzler. You know, you wind it through to schnitzel them,
Yep.
and we had the girls on that. So that's pretty awesome to have them involved in the meat. You know, the cutting up side of it and
Yeah.
butchering. So yeah, it's really good to, and they've grown up around it. I mean, yeah, they've just grown up walking around sambar legs in the shed, you know, or fallow deer. That's just a part of their life.
It's funny. People are just used to what they're used to. If you grow up walking around that sort of stuff and seeing an animal hung up for food, that's just what it is. And then I've talked about it on the podcast before that a lot of people are disconnected from where their food comes from because they go to the supermarkets and buy it in that little, tray and it's already wrapped up and whatnot. But the reality is they just haven't seen it. Like I think we've done ourselves a bit of an injustice with even butchers and things like that, not having full animals just hanging in the shop where people can see them and cutting them up. So it's just a common part of life because there's a lot of people out there nowadays that they don't even know. They just think it's a tray.
Oh,
The
for
meat's
sure.
there. They just aren't even thinking that it was once an animal. I do remember having a story of someone not sort of understanding that ribs were like the ribs of an animal. And it was just like, my mind was a bit blown just going, how could you not know this? But they'd never put two and two together, but they'd never, obviously they're not a hunter or they're not even interested in sort of that self-sufficiency or getting their own meat or anything like that. So I can sort of see that side of it too, that they wouldn't be thinking about it and the exposure's not there. So it's funny, like, I'm hoping my kids will be the same. My kids are, my oldest is getting close to 4 and the twins are getting close to 2. I want them around it and being out and about and, same sort of thing. I can't wait till they sort of get to that older age where they're keen and they hopefully want to come and that's going to be super exciting.
Yeah, it's good. It'd be good to have someone just to carry a backstrap or something out, give you a bit of a hand with a carry out too. So
Yeah, bloody hell, that'll be good, especially as you get older.
yeah, well, Carly's been threatening to she wants to backpack and do a bit more hiking and stuff. So things are looking up for a extra set of hands with a carry out. But with the butchering side of it, so with the farm and the girls growing up, we butchered our own lambs. Not so much the beef, beef, but the lambs were always butchered there, and the deer and the full, even making sausages and all that was just. And the treatment of the animals, they're aware how the treatment of the animals was so good. The farm,
Yeah.
like parents just looked after the animals so well, and so they're used to that side of it as well. Never any sort of mental perception that it was any mistreatment of the animals, and they were put down humanely and butchered, and that's just, they don't know any different than that. That's just what they know. So it's not an issue, and I wish we're probably getting to a stage where it's getting to the pointy end with hunting and in different states and what's going on everywhere that you wish it was getting pushed down that path for everyone, but it's sort of it's getting pushed away, which is sad.
Yeah, it is very sad. I don't understand why. Like, I just think people are very intolerant of other people and what they do. And I try and say that, and even as hunters, I know people approach it differently, and that's up to everyone to do what they want to do. But I think the saying you win more. What is it? You attract more bees with honey than vinegar, or maybe it's flies. I can't even remember the saying.
Yeah.
You know what I mean. And
Yeah.
I see the back and forth verbal stuff on social media, and it's just, I see it as a pointless sort of event because there's a lot of keyboard warriors out there. There's a lot of trolls that are deliberately done. I don't think we should be engaging in that sort of stuff because I always sort of say don't lower yourself to their standards, especially if they're just doing it to bait or to paint people in a bad light. If people are actually genuine to hear and learn about it, and I have only really had positive experiences talking to a range of people, vegans included, about why I hunt, what I do, the meat, how I use it, the whole thing, the whole process. And generally, they're not going to go out hunting, but that's not the objective. They're happy for me to do it, and they understand why I want to do it because there's so many misconceptions out there. And as we were sort of talking about before, you know what you know. And if you've never had someone around you that hunts, well, you don't know anything about it. So then you're going off the media, your perception, your thought about what it is. They're very, very different things to reality. And yeah, it's a very interesting one for me of where it goes, because down there in Vic, I think it's the last couple of days we're seeing that they want to turn state forest into national park and ban, 4-wheel drive hunting, the whole lot for that. So it's not just targeted at hunters; it's targeted at the wider outdoor community. And I think this is the time that I think we need to be working together, not so much isolated with hunters, but we need to be dragging in all these other mobs and saying, hey, let's get the 4-wheel drivers on board. And I was lucky enough, I had Mad Matt 4-wheel drive on, and he was really good. He's a 4-wheel driver, has no interest in hunting, did it once or twice and was rubbish at it and said, I'm crap, I'm not going to do it. And I love the honesty from him. But as he said, I want to use the outdoors for 4-wheel driving as long as it's legal and it's done respectfully and it's not, doing the wrong thing. Go for it. Same as hunting. Hey, if you're doing the right thing and you're not doing the wrong thing, I'll support you. And I think that's what we need. We need people, and we need to somehow work on this alliance. And it started to happen down there when I was talking to Danny Ryan, that there was a coalition forming, especially to sort of, try and link up all these to fight sort of stuff like this. So I might get back in touch with him and see what's going on with that. But it's really concerning, because it's just another nail in the coffin. It's getting smaller and smaller, and that becomes harder. And I talk about it all the time, that public land's great. And I'm so glad we got public land up here in New South Wales. But with more hunters means less chances to get the forests you want. You might have to travel more. You might be going to forests without deer in them if you're chasing deer or whatever it might be. And that's all things that start to turn people away. Now, Vic's pretty lucky. I love your system down there, where if it's just huntable land, you just go out. That's great. I love it. Where it's not the same up here. And the rut is the perfect example of that. It's, I missed out. I did all this prep work for the area that I wanted and couldn't get a spot in the forest. So it was a complete waste for the rut.
Yeah.
That's public land. Get it. But I like the Vic model that you can just go in, and you can go in anywhere and you don't have to book and all that. I think that's a fantastic system. So it does really worry me when I'm reading these things. And I don't know much about it. I'm going to look more into it. But that really scares me, because it's a large chunk of state forests that if that goes to national park, there goes the hunting in it. There goes the 4-wheel driving. There goes the camping. Just so many elements just get thrown out the window, and that sucks.
Yeah, I think until everyone, the only thing disappoints me in the whole hunting scene, and don't get me wrong, there's so many great people and so many that do the right thing, but until everyone can stick together and band together, all these groups, nitpicking about someone that shot a deer that's not big enough or this or that, until we band together, we're doomed unless we do band together at some point.
I saw a quote from Fred Bear today, and I think it was, if you're not actively promoting hunting, you're working against it. And that resonated with me, because I just sat there and went, you're exactly right with what you said. I've said it so many times on this podcast. We are so divided when it comes to hunting. It doesn't matter if I don't hunt with dogs. It doesn't mean I don't want people to hunt with dogs.
That's right.
I'm not a pig dogger, not really interested in pig dogging, I'll be honest. But it doesn't mean I want to see it gone. Like, if they're doing it right, legally, hey, you've got my support to keep doing it. That's how it should be. And this is where it gets really tricky, because I see a lot of people go, it's not my issue. And I look at the duck, like what happened with the ducks down there, and how many people made submissions. And it was 5,000, which sounded like a really great number, but the reality is that 5,000 wasn't that great when you look at how many licenses were. It was just a drop in the ocean. And it's like, well, that's a big problem. Look, I get people are busy with life. I totally get it. But my concern is that my kids will want to hunt and they're not going to be able to, because we've just lost it. And the way society is going, people are living more and more in cities, more and more in units and high rises. They're so much more disconnected. The amount of people are like struggling. I was talking to my wife about this. She loves camping, but none of her mates really do. So she's very envious when I go hunting, more that I'm camping, not so much the hunting side. I'm out get camping, because she doesn't get that. But all her friends they're not really into that. Yeah. And I think that's going to be more and more common as, we sort of progress, and with technology, people are, I think, from where I live and seeing the people around us, and seeing the younger generations coming through, there's less and less attractiveness from the outdoors. They just don't want to go out there. They're disconnected. What do you mean there's no service out there? It's
Yeah,
just
yeah,
it's a different kettle of fish.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, so we're getting more. Looks like there's talk of more parts of the bush here being locked up. There's more aerial culls going on. It's getting to the pointy end as well in Vic. So yeah, I'd just be great to see everyone band together a bit more and actually work together towards the common goal of everyone can still hunt, everyone can still go
Yep.
forward driving, everyone can utilize the bush, and we're not locked out. That's the ultimate goal. Doesn't matter if Joe does this or Bill does that. Yeah, so that's sort of my take on that anyway.
Yeah, I'm with you. Look, as long as I think we talk about mental health and we talk about all these variety of things, and one of the best things for it is going out to the bush and being out there amongst nature and just even just looking up at the stars. I think you get lost in the cities. I'm not sure if you're in a city, but I'm on the outskirts of Sydney, and the sky is just not the same.
No.
Just the light pollution just dulls it. And I sort of sit there and go, how many people have never actually gone out where they can actually see the stars? Like, I still remember I drove from Sydney to Darwin, and man, in Alice, camped on the side of the road, just looking up at the stars. Oh my God, just unbelievable. Like, so breathtaking, so hard to even explain. And it makes me question how many people have ever got the chance to see that. I reckon the vast majority don't really leave the city, or if they do, they're not camping or going to these remote areas to see those things. It's such a shame, because I do think it grounds people and it gives you a bit more perspective in life, I think.
Yeah, we have some people come up here. I've been lucky enough to sort of be we're in a small town and on the edge of a small town, but we've still got the farm there and get out there a lot. But we have some of the family a city in Melbourne or Sydney, and they come up and we have a bonfire, and they're excited that you have a big bonfire. Like, they're like, wow, this is awesome. How often do you do this? This is so good. And the stars, the sky's so clear, and even. And you don't get sick of it. I've been chasing the deer around forever, and I still get up in the morning, walk in, and it's cold, and it might be winter's morning, and it's freezing. But yeah, it's still just that freedom of being out there in nature is just still it's still awesome.
It's crazy to think. When you're talking about a big bonfire there, I love using my pellet grill and smoking up meat. Like, it's such a great way to cook. And I'm on a heap of different pellet grill and smoking Facebook groups, and the amount of times I see people posting that they have neighbours talking about the smoke and just smashing them. And I know there's some councils out there trying to ban them, like it's smoke pollution and it's offensive to neighbours that you can't do it. And I just sit there and just go, oh man, like I'm lucky enough to have a bit of land here, so our neighbours are not really close and they're pretty great neighbours anyway. So I just sit there and just think of the poor people sort of locked up in these 300 square metre, places that have neighbours that complain about that because they're just on top of each other, and it's so different. I get when I talk to country people and they have sort of a different perception of city people, because it is almost two different countries. Like, they're so different for people to find those similarities. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, for sure. But with the smoking side of it, yeah. So we do a lot of the meat side of it. We do our own salamis, which is venison, pork, but we do a lot of cabana with the venison as well.
Nice.
So yeah, we've got some pretty cool recipes going there, and yeah, we'll end up making some cabana probably next weekend with our got a spiky there on the weekend, so you'll turn him into some cabana, I reckon.
Yeah, nice. I was chatting to a mate the other day because we were talking about just the quality of the meat. Venison's just so bloody good, and people that haven't had it, they just don't get it. And there's such that perception. And he had some of mine. I gave him it for the first time, and he couldn't fault it. And I sort of, I always say, well, how's the gaminess? Like, he's like, what gaminess? I was like, yeah, pretty much. That seems to be the same comment when I give people some for the first time. And it's so interesting because it's just such a high quality meat.
It is, yeah.
It baffles me as to You mentioned aerial culling before. It just baffles me as why we're doing that sort of crap, costing the taxpayer a fortune and wasting such a great sustainable resource. It's insane. I
It is.
just sit there and just go,
Yeah,
what are we doing?
it's
Just
crazy. What
nuts.
are we doing? Yeah. Well, I tell you what,
Absolute nuts.
if I make a tray full of schnitzels, it doesn't matter how many schnitzels you make. You know, you might make, whether it's backstrap or whatever, you might make 10 schnitzels. You might make 20 schnitzels. Doesn't matter. They'll all get eaten because the girls love them. Like, you know, they've grown up eating them and they're always asking for venison schnitzel, you know, but yeah, no gaminess. So I don't sort of get the gaminess with it. You know, it's, and we've learnt, we used to have a lot of mince and stuff, do our own mince, but used to mix it with a bit of fat, you know, a bit of pork fat or whatever fat, but not anymore. Like the missus just cooks now with it, just straight venison mince, and yeah, that's sort of, you don't have to buy too much meat when you can provide, you know.
Oh, that's where I want to get to, is being able to regularly source it and just always have some in the freezer and be able to sort of just, I don't mind, like I like beef and I like lamb, it's great. And I still want to eat it, but if I can sort of transition and get more of the venison, I find my kids actually prefer the venison.
Yeah, it's funny,
They're
isn't it?
little, but they actually prefer it. When I cook that up, it generally always gets eaten. And if not, they want seconds.
Yeah, for
As
sure.
opposed to when I just cook up, you know, beef or lamb, that doesn't tend to happen. Sometimes they'll even turn their nose up it, which is quite interesting because I'm not really cooking them very differently. It's not like I'm adding a heap of sauces or anything like that,
Yeah,
but they just tend to like it, which is, you know, it's very cool knowing that you harvested that and you supplied that and they're eating it. That I think that's just amazing.
yeah, it's a good feeling to be able to provide for your family and not have to go to the shops all the time and rely on it. You know, we found that through COVID. You know, obviously it's a sort of a bad word, but during that period, you know, I don't know, people were still buying toilet paper, but for some reason, but they when they got into the meat and stuff and they started getting into the meat, you thought, well, that's cool, we're right because we'll just go and shoot a deer and we'll be fine. You know what I mean? So it's just good to have that hunting background, and you can provide if you need to, or otherwise you're stuck in the same rut as everyone else. Otherwise,
Yeah, no, it is, and it's you know, and that actually shocked me a bit. I really thought that after COVID, there'd be so many more people accepting and willing to not only get into hunting, and there has been a bit, but I also think people have forgotten what it was like, and you know, same as these lockups and things like that. I think that it's sort of been enough time. I think people just get like complacent and forgetful, and they've just forgot about that. Like I was talking about it today, and actually we were going over some of the rules and the regulations that we had to do, and it was just so insane when you actually think back about it. I was like, oh, I've almost forgotten some of the things that we had to do, and looking back now compared to just being back to normal, it's insane. So I think that's the problem. People just go, oh, I've forgotten about it, or I've moved on, and life's busy. Get it? Like there's a million things going on all at once, and it's it's one of those things. But fingers crossed. I really hope down there the somehow. I know I saw the ADA. They were in. I think they're starting to lobby up against this to try and make sure that these state forests don't get turned into national parks. So good on them. And I hope they keep advocating. I hope others get on board to do the same because I think it's really important.
yeah, very important time to stick together and be very interesting where it takes us in the next 12 months and 12 months, 18 months, and see what path it goes down. But back to that point we touched on earlier with everyone sticking together and trying to, there's going to come a time where we're going to need to have each other's back or we'll lose everything.
Yeah, no, couldn't agree more. Well, mate, thank you for coming on. I'm glad we've had the chance to chat. I'm super excited to see these final product up and about. Can you tell our listeners where they can find you, your website, your Instagram, your Facebook, so they can get on, have a look at your gear, because I reckon it's going to go through the roof.
Yeah, cheers. Yeah, so Instagram. So if you just look at Aussie Skull Mounts and Designs on Insta and Facebook, and we have got our website, and we have got our email address, admin@aussieskullmountsanddesigns.com.au.
Ripper. I'll put the links in the show notes, guys. So if you didn't catch all that, they will be there for you anyway. Get over, check it out, support Aussie Made. It is an awesome looking sneak peek that I've seen. Awesome looking thing. I reckon you'll be super happy with it, and sounds very flexible. I've liked everything I've heard tonight. So hoping I'll get better at hunting and be able to get a trophy to use it. So, and then I'll be able to buy one off you, mate.
Perfect. Thanks, Matt.
All right, Brad, thank you very much for joining us. Listeners, I hope you've enjoyed. Get over, check it out, and I'll catch you next time. Bye for now. If you have a topic, guest, question, or any gear that you want to hear about on the podcast, shoot us an email, australianhuntingandbeyond@gmail.com. Alternatively, find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. All the links are in the show notes. If you haven't already, make sure you give us a review and subscribe to our podcast on whatever platform you're listening on. Thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you next time.